Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company on the 440 Sports Network, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Here today on the program. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Again, this it's as our off-season world turns, and it will continue to turn, and we will continue to talk about it, and we will continue to break it down and everything else. So again, like and subscribe. Tell all your friends, so on and so forth. We are presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. We'll tell you about them in a second. So, do anything happen today? Is there any big news to get to? Is there any big story that's out there? Is there any, or is it just kind of a go with the flow kind of, oh, breaking news! Within the last hour or so, Mike Tomlin is stepping down in Pittsburgh. Again, we all watched the game last night. They got their butts kicked. I mean, again, it feels kind of like the writing was on the wall as far as the Steelers and Tomlin were concerned. Again, it's not like I didn't have the moment of, whoa, when that came across my phone that Tomlin was stepping down. And who knew if it was going to be a stepping down, a firing? Who knew if he was going to come back? I don't. But I'm not stunned that Mike Tomlin is stepping down. But it still is a big whoa moment given the 19-year run that Mike Tomlin had with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, again, wow. That was the big news today. Now, on cue, many of you people immediately said, we want Tomlin or Harbaugh. Brett, go Titans, go. Throw the bank for Tomlin. I knew that's where this was going to be as far as the fan base and the Titans were concerned. Is now Mike Tomlin's out there, and now you people who have been telling me we got to have John Harbaugh, Jared, are now going to tell me we got to have Mike Tomlin. One guy says prediction. Somehow Tomlin stepping down is bad for the Titans. Jared has battered Titan syndrome. I don't know if I'd say it's bad for the Titans that Mike Tomlin stepped down. I don't think it's bad, but I do think it changes things. I do think it's one of those moments where, again, we're all in our own war room sitting there thinking to ourselves, okay, what does this mean for the Titans job? Because now there are 8 head coach openings in the NFL that are available. And I would argue that the Pittsburgh Steelers job is the number one job on the market. And the reason the Pittsburgh Steelers job is the number one job on the market is because the Pittsburgh Steelers do not fire coaches. And they take pride in the fact that they do not fire coaches. I mean, that's something that, again, when it comes to Pittsburgh, they look at themselves in the mirror and they say, we're proud of the fact that we've had 3 coaches over the last 100 years, whether it was Chuck Noll, whether it was Bill Cowher, and now Mike Tomlin. And we're proud of that. That's who we are. And the next coach we hire, he's going to be our coach for 15 years. We hope. Because that's how we do things in Pittsburgh. It's like the Green Bay Packers. They think we draft a quarterback, sit him on the bench for a couple of years, and then Brett becomes Aaron, becomes Jordan. And when Jordan Love's in the league for year 16, they'll draft somebody else too behind him. And they'll do the same thing. They take pride in it. Just like Jerry Jones takes pride in the fact that his team is a shit show. The Steelers' job is the number one job because the Steelers take so much pride in the fact that they don't fire coaches. They're the opposite of Al Davis and the Raiders, who took pride in the fact that he fired every coach out there. So that's the first thing. I'm not going to say that's bad for the Titans. I didn't think the Titans had the number one job out there. I thought the Ravens were the number one job that was out there as far as available candidates were concerned. The second thing, Mike Tomlin's rights are still owned by the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Mike Tomlin, and I actually thought that Tomlin and the Steelers were going to break up 2 years ago. Do you guys remember at the end of the 2023 season, they had Kenny Pickett as the quarterback, and then they benched him for Mitch Trubisky, and then they benched him for Mason Rudolph at the end of the year, and they somehow made the playoffs with Mason Rudolph. They went to Buffalo. They played a playoff game. They had no chance of winning, which, by the way, has been the hallmark of the last 5 years under Tomlin. Playing playoff games, they have no chance of winning. Zero chance of winning. They weren't going to beat the Chiefs in 21. They weren't going to beat the Bills in 23. They weren't going to beat the Ravens last year, and they weren't going to beat the Texans last night. No matter how hard C.J. Stroud tried to give the game to the Steelers, they were not going to lose that game. The Steelers' offense has just been painful the last couple of years under Tomlin because, again, they've been looking for a quarterback. They can't find one. But I thought 2 years ago, after that Buffalo loss, when Tomlin was not signed for the next season, and he was asked about his job status, and he kind of exited stage left after the season was over, and then it was announced he was signing an extension and he was going to stay with the Steelers, I thought Tomlin and the Steelers were headed for a breakup then. And it felt like 2 years ago, it was time. It just felt like Tomlin had a great run in Pittsburgh. The Steelers can be proud of what he brought to the organization. He still is young enough at that point in time 2 years ago to really go get another job and kind of go do the Tomlin thing somewhere else. And yet they decided to continue, which I was a little surprised by. I think, again, when it comes to Tomlin and the Steelers, I think it was time. And I know that the way that they're saying this is Tomlin steps down, and Tomlin met with the Rooneys this morning and told them he was going to step down. And then Tomlin met with the players, and then the news broke after Tomlin met with the players, and the Steelers were the ones that released it. And there was a statement from Art Rooney about how much he loves Mike Tomlin. I mean, I think that, again, the Steelers and Tomlin knew that they were headed for a divorce for a while. Like, I think that Tomlin told you what you needed to know when he was asked about if Tyler Loop makes that kick against the Ravens, then what? And he said, well, you know the story about if my aunt had my uncle's genitalia. I think he's saying, yeah, I'm done. If Tyler Loop makes that kick, I'm out of here. And so they played one more game. And they got beat, and Tomlin moves on. But the Steelers own Tomlin's rights. So if you are a Titan fan that is saying, go get Mike Tomlin, Mike Tomlin is out there. But Mike Tomlin would require compensation to the Steelers. And for reference sake, the last time that there was a coach in a similar situation, Sean Payton decided, I had a nice run in New Orleans. Drew Brees is retired. It's time for me to step back. And then when Sean Payton got back into the game, the Denver Broncos had to trade a first-round pick, which was 29th overall. So it wasn't as if they were trading the third pick in the draft. But the 29th pick in the draft, plus their 2024 second, in exchange for New Orleans' 2024 third and Sean Payton. So if you want Mike Tomlin, it's kind of the same as John Harbaugh, and I think the same of what it would cost you for Jim Harbaugh if Jim was out there. I think it would cost you more money, same power, but it would cost you draft pick compensation. And the Titans are not going to trade the 4th overall pick for a coach. The days of John Gruden being traded for 2 firsts and 2 seconds, those days are over. But I do wonder if the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to want your 2nd round pick in return. So let's say the Titans picked up the phone today and called the Steelers. And again, I think there are a lot of hurdles that would be in the way of the Titans signing Mike Tomlin. But let's say that Mike Tomlin wanted to coach Titans, and the Titans wanted Mike Tomlin, and they picked up the phone and they called the Steelers, and they said, hey, what would you want for Mike Tomlin? I think the Steelers would want I think it's going to be the 33rd, 34th pick in the draft. They'd want your 2nd. And that's probably fair given what Sean Payton's compensation was going from New Orleans, who still had him under contract, to Denver. And that was a 1st, a 2nd. They got a 3rd back. Again, you're not going to trade the 4th pick because the 33rd pick is a lot closer to the 29th pick. But I think that's probably what you're looking at. So before you even say to me, Jared, we need Tomlin, I want to ask you directly, are you willing to trade your 2nd round pick in order to get Mike Tomlin? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, again, I don't understand why people have such a hard time having this conversation. Why people get so angry every time I bring this up. I don't understand it. But for all the people out there that want John Harbaugh, I've told you, if you are serious about John Harbaugh, you have to give him control of the organization, and you're going to have to pay him $20 million a year and give him a 5-year contract. And every time I bring that up, people say to me, but Jared, why would he need full control? He didn't have it in Baltimore. I mean, Mike Borgonzi did a good job this past year. They didn't improve their win-loss record by 1 game, FYI. And everybody seems to think Borgonzi did a good job last year. I don't know where you people get that. And I'm not shitting on Borgonzi when I say, how can you say he did a good job? But I'm just asking, how can you say he did a good job when they didn't win any more games than they had won the year before with Will Levis as their quarterback? I don't understand that. But again, I've said that's what it'll take. And the $20 million contract for John Harbaugh ensures that John Harbaugh would have more power than Mike Borgonzi no matter what. Again, you just paid John Harbaugh $20 million for the next 5 years. I would say 4 because this year counts. 5 years. So you've committed $100 million to him. I asked a league insider yesterday who would know this, what he thought Borgonzi was making, and the league insider told me $4 million, saying that that's about the going rate for first-time general managers. James Gladstone in Jacksonville makes $3 million, and so Borgonzi's probably in that 3 to 4 range. Well, let's say Borgonzi got a 5-year deal at $4 million a year. That's $20 million. So you're paying John Harbaugh the same amount in 1 year that you're paying out over Borgonzi's entire contract. You're on the clock. The 4th pick is up. One guy wants Jeremiah Love. The other guy wants Reuben Bain. You're going to go with the $20 million a year guy. You're just going to do that. So everything I said, you have to give John Harbaugh. If you really want John Harbaugh, you have to give Mike Tomlin. If you want Mike Tomlin, you have to give him everything that I say you have to give John Harbaugh. You have to give Mike Tomlin total control of the organization. Again, Tomlin doesn't have to be the GM in title, and the GM does do work even in those situations where Kyle Shanahan picks the players in San Francisco. John Lynch still goes to work every day and still does stuff. But you have to let the organization be led by Mike Tomlin. You have to let Mike Tomlin decide who the quarterback is. You have to let Mike Tomlin decide what to do with the 4th overall pick. You have to let Mike Tomlin decide who's on the coaching staff. You have to let Mike Tomlin decide everything. Because if not, he won't take your job. Because somebody, if Mike Tomlin wants to get back into coaching, will give that to Mike Tomlin. You're going to have to give Tomlin the $20 million a year. Here's something people don't understand about the Titans. The Titans do not have a great reputation when it comes to honoring the commitments that they make to coaches and general managers, fairly or unfairly. In fact, they have quite a bad reputation when it comes to that. So if I'm going to sign up to work for that kooky owner, you better be paying me so much money that if I get fired, I can live with it, with the fact that you've ruined my reputation. Or you're going to be paying me so much money that you can't fire me. Tomlin's going to want to be in that boat if the Titans want Tomlin. And then finally, you're going to have to trade with the Steelers in order to get him. Because the Steelers own his rights. This is not John Harbaugh. There is a difference in the situation. John Harbaugh can go anywhere he wants to go. John Harbaugh could be hired today by the Pittsburgh Steelers, a division rival, a bitter division rival, who just fired their longtime coach. They could hire Harbaugh as soon as they have their 2 external minority in-person interviews because of the Rooney Rule. They could hire John Harbaugh today. Because once again, when it comes to Harbaugh, he was fired. Tomlin was not fired. Tomlin is voluntarily leaving the gig, which means you have to trade for it. So everything you'd have to give in order to get Harbaugh is everything you'd have to turn around and do for Tomlin, plus you'd have to trade for him. Now, on the Titans front, about the Titans' interest in Mike Tomlin. I feel, and I think most of you feel, correct me if I'm wrong on this, I feel like Matt Nagy is going to be the next coach of the Titans. I mean, we had Nick Suss on yesterday, and Suss had a story today in the Tennessean about Nagy, and I said to Suss, I go, Suss, who do you think it's going to be? He said, I think it's going to be Nagy. I've said for months since the Borgonzi post-trade deadline press conference that I thought Matt Nagy was going to be the next coach of the Titans. Jason Anderson in Kansas City was on our show on Thursday, and I asked him, who do you think is going to be the next coach of the, what are they saying in Kansas City? He says, the consensus in Kansas City is Matt Nagy's going to be the next coach of the Titans. So I think it, you think it, we all think it. It's unfortunate because it's not exciting, but it is the reality. And I mean, again, I listened to a football show yesterday with Braden and Paul. I thought they did a really good job. But as I was listening to Braden and Paul talk about Jeff Hafley and Jesse Mentor and Chris Shula, and as I'm listening to that discussion, I'm thinking to myself, I mean, that sounds great, but they're going to hire Matt Nagy. And we all know that. I think we know that. Like, I think we all know they're going to hire Matt Nagy, or at least we feel like they're going to hire Matt Nagy. The reason I say this is I don't know if you're Amy Adams Strunk and you're Mike Borgonzi. I don't know how you can look at your fans with John Harbaugh out there, with Mike Tomlin out there, with Mike McCarthy, who has won a Super Bowl and has been to the playoffs multiple times with the Dallas Cowboys, with 3 Super Bowl winning coaches available. I don't know how you can look at your fans and say, sorry, guys, but we're going to go with Matt Nagy. I know you don't like Matt Nagy, but we like Matt Nagy, and we're going to go with Matt Nagy, and we're not interested in Tomlin, we're not interested in Harbaugh, and we're not interested in McCarthy. If you were to say we're not interested in McCarthy, I think Titans fans could accept that, because even though McCarthy has a very good resume and was good with the Green Bay Packers and won a Super Bowl with the Green Bay Packers and was good with the Dallas Cowboys, not great, but he was good with the Dallas Cowboys, you can say, hey, game's past him. Again, I think his weight makes people believe that he's just some big fat oaf, which again, I don't think is necessarily fair, but perception's reality. I think you could convince Titan fans, hey, we like Nagy more than we like McCarthy. Okay, fine. I'm not sure you can really tell Titan fans, hey, I know Harbaugh's out there, but we really like Nagy. Because Titan fans are like, well, wait a minute. Let's compare the resumes for a second. It's not close. And it's not. And now that Tomlin's out there, unless Tomlin comes out tomorrow and says, I'm going to NBC, see you on the Super Bowl broadcast, unless that happens, if Tomlin's out there and the Titans still hire Matt Nagy, I think it's going to be a tough sell to say, trust us. Again, this is a 3-14 general manager that would be saying, trust us. We didn't have any real interest in Tomlin. We didn't have any real interest in McCarthy. We didn't have any real interest in John Harbaugh. But Nagy, trust us. That's our guy. We know. Trust us. At the beginning of this process, when it didn't look like there would be a John Harbaugh out there or a Mike Tomlin out there, you could say, well, it's a bunch of unproven guys. Jesse Mentor and Chris Shula and whomever, and then a bunch of retreads. And Nagy fits in with the retreads. Nagy fits in with Robert Saleh and Mike McDaniel and those guys. Because, again, they all kind of have a similar track record. I know Saleh didn't win shit with the Jets, but the Jets are so stinky. But Matt Nagy went to the playoffs twice in 4 years. McDaniel went to the playoffs a couple of times. Stefanski went to the playoffs a couple of times. All those guys went to the playoffs a couple of times. They never won anything that mattered. But, okay. You know, I mean, I don't know you can do that with Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh sitting out there. And you are trying to sell PSLs to a new stadium. I know people keep saying, well, you know, the coaches love the idea of the new stadium. I think that is complete and utter horseshit. Why would a coach care about the stadium? I still don't understand that. People are like, well, it shows a commitment that the team has to winning and a budget operation, and the Raiders have one of the newest, nicest stadiums in the league. You want to go coach there? No, you don't. Coaches do not care about the stadium. You want to know what they care about? Am I getting Peyton Manning? That's what they care about. I think the Steelers' job is the top job. Why? Because they don't fire the coach. So if I'd taken the Steelers' job, I'm like, hell, I'll never get fired. This is great. So again, I go back to the Tomlin front, and I'm like, if you really, really want Tomlin, you'll have to give everything I said you give to John Harbaugh. You'll have to give to Tomlin. You'll have to probably trade your second-round pick to the Steelers in order to compensate them for losing Tomlin. And you'd have to give him the power, and you're not going to get that with Matt Nagy. I do believe that Pittsburgh is the top job out there. I had somebody reach out to me today. They said, what about Marcus Freeman for that job? I think the Steeler job is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It's one thing to say, you know, I could go to the NFL. I could go to the NFL next year. I could go to the NFL in 2 years. And I could get the Titans job then, or I could get the Texans job or the Panthers job or whatever run-of-the-mill job. Now, a lot of these guys would give up everything they have because it's one of 32. But as far as premium franchises, premium jobs are concerned, this job is gold. It is like a Supreme Court justice job. You get the Steeler job, you ain't getting fired. You can go 7-10 as the Steelers coach, and there will be a next season. So I could see Marcus Freeman saying, yeah, I'm not really interested in the New York Giants. Or I could see Marcus Freeman when the initial list came out saying, you know what, I'm good with Notre Dame. They'll pay me a bunch of money. But this is the Steelers. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Last year, when the Patriots job came open, we all knew Mike Vrabel was going to take the job. And Mike Vrabel interviewed with the Jets. He was never going to take the Jets job. If the Steelers job was open last year, I think that there would have been a battle for Mike Tomlin or for Mike Vrabel between the Steelers and the Patriots because of how much respect I assume Vrabel has for the Steelers, where he played. And I'll say this for Mike Borgonzi. The Tomlin news makes it very difficult. If the plan is Matt Nagy, it's going to make it very difficult to execute the Matt Nagy plan. When you sat in front of everybody on multiple occasions and your starting quarterback has sat in front of people, again, on multiple occasions and said what this team needs in a head coach is a leader. What this team needs is somebody to hold everybody accountable, to lead the ball club. We're looking for the best leader. We don't care if it's an offensive coach, a defensive coach. We want the best leader. And then to turn down Mike Tomlin. It's kind of hard to do that. Well, you know, Matt Nagy is a better leader than Mike Tomlin. Again, you might be able to sell some people on that with McCarthy. You might be able to say he's a better leader than McCarthy. You are not telling anybody that Matt Nagy is a better leader than Mike Tomlin. And so he is what they've said they want. Both the head coach and leading the organization. And Tomlin is what they want. That's what they've said they want. That's what Borgonzi has said they've wanted. That's what Cam says they need. That's what Simmons, when he talks about the culture, that's Tomlin. So again, if there wasn't anybody good out there, then you could say, well, you know what, Matt Nagy, we know Matt Nagy, just trust us. And you'll sit there and say, okay, well, look at everybody else. And everybody else has Jesse Minter. We don't know if he's any good. Everybody else has the latest flavor of the month with the Rams. That Shield Chase or whatever his name is, they have him. Everybody else has whomever. They're all kind of the same until you actually see them coach. They're kind of all the same. We don't know any of them. It's fine. But you can't do that when you're like, whoa. They got Tomlin. They got Harbaugh. And we got Nagy. That makes it more difficult. And then I do wonder, when it comes to the Titans, is Amy on board with Matt Nagy? And there's a reason that I think we need to bring up the Matt Nagy thing. There was something that happened that I saw when it came to Matt Nagy that I was kind of surprised by. So we all know that a couple of weeks ago, Dan Pompei, who is a Hall of Fame voter and is a well-respected writer, Dan Pompei wrote a piece in The Athletic about Matt Nagy. It was a Matt Nagy redemption piece. And they got Andy Reid's blessing in there, and they talked about all the things that Matt Nagy said he learned in Chicago. They rehashed the entire Chicago situation, and it was very pro-Nagy. It was a Matt Nagy propaganda piece, is what it felt like. And they wanted you to know Matt Nagy is going to take responsibility for why it didn't work out in Chicago. Matt Nagy has done his homework on himself by hiring Laura Oakman to give him a 40-person, 5-hour report on what he needs to do better. And Andy Reid was quoted in the story, and he gives his blessing for you to hire Matt Nagy. That was a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. Jonathan Jones at CBS wrote a story and went to Kansas City and sat down with Matt Nagy. But he didn't just sit down with Matt Nagy. He sat down with Andy Reid, and he sat down with Patrick Mahomes. And they did an interview with all the guys. And Nagy talked about what happened in Chicago and the Laura Oakman deal and, all the things about what he's learned and what he would do differently and all the stuff that was in the Dan Pompei story. And then once again, it came with a full endorsement from Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. This is from CBS. Take a look.
Yeah, I think with all experience that you get better from. And he's learned, and I think he already knew, but learned even more on how to just talk and interact with more and more people and be able to go out there and have his voice in the offense, but also get the voice from the players, which I think is really cool. And you can see how excited guys are to go out there and play when you have receivers drawing up their own plays and tight ends drawing up their own plays. And they might not be exactly what they drew up, but they have their imprint on the offense, which I think gets guys fired up to go out there and execute the plays. And he wants to hear what they feel the most confident in. That's sometimes you want to go out there and make your plays fit the players, but sometimes you want the players to put their input on them so that the players fit the plays. And so whenever you hear the guy and how he describes how he runs routes or describes what he's best at, you can put him in the right position to go out there and succeed.
I feel great about him. He's a tremendous football coach, great person. So that's a big part of running an organization. You got to have somebody that an owner trusts. He's putting everything into his hands. So he's got to be a good person. He's got to work hard. He's got to be a good leader of men, in this business. And then he also brings the football part of it, the knowledge. And that part hasn't changed. He's just built on that over the years here. And I would tell you, better prepare. Well, yeah, because he's had that experience. Yeah.
So Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid want you to know Matt Nagy is ready for chance number 2 at being a head coach. Can I ask, why are they doing this? I mean, I understand the one story where Dan Pompei, who lives in Kansas City and is a national reporter, you bring him into the facility, you take him to your house, done. But now you're bringing in a guy from CBS to sit down in the facility. You're taking Patrick Mahomes, who is rehabbing his knee, and this is the offseason, and you're asking Patrick, hey, Patrick, sit down and talk about Matt Nagy. Andy Reid, sit down and, again, fully endorse Matt Nagy. What is up with this campaign for Matt Nagy? Why does Matt Nagy need a media blitz of positivity from Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes? And is this normal for somebody to go all in when it comes to trying to get a second job? Especially when everybody already thinks he's getting the job here? I don't remember Joe Burrow doing interviews pumping up Brian Callahan, and I don't see Kyle Shanahan inviting anybody into his facility to tell you about how great Robert Saleh will be as a head coach somewhere else. So I'm trying to figure out why. Why is Andy Reid? Why is Matt Nagy? Why is Patrick Mahomes? Why are the Chiefs committed to this redemptive Matt Nagy story? So much so that, again, they are inviting people into the facility to pump up the prospects of a coach that, quite frankly, and I said this to Mike Borgonzi last week, the general perception is he was not very good in Chicago. What is the point of this? And some of you will say, well, hey, they like Nagy. They want to do Nagy a solid. They really believe in Nagy. But they didn't have that kind of PR push for Eric Bieniemy. At least I don't think they did. Where's the PR campaign for Steve Spagnuolo? It's not like Jonathan Jones went to Kansas City, sat down with Nagy, sat down with Mahomes, sat down with Andy Reid, and asked them, hey, what about Steve Spagnuolo as a head coach too? Nope, this is just about Nagy. It's not like Kansas City gets anything. Nagy's not under contract next year. If Nagy goes to the Titans don't give Kansas City any compensation. It's not like there would be a contract they'd have to pay on Matt Nagy. So what's up with this PR push? And I'll just ask you this. Can I tell you what my gut says when it comes to the Matt Nagy PR push? My gut says they know Mike Borgonzi wants to hire him. Whether or not Borgonzi has told Andy that, they know. If it was up to Borgonzi and Borgonzi alone, Matt Nagy would be the next head coach of the Titans. And two things make it pretty clear to me that Borgonzi has serious interest in Matt Nagy. Number one, he was asked last week about the need for an alpha male coach. And Paul, of course, was asking that because Vrabel is the ultimate alpha male, and then he was able to write his story about the Titans are looking for a coach like Mike Vrabel. But the truth is, Borgonzi answered that by saying, I think that's kind of overrated. Being a good leader and being an alpha male are not the equivalent of one another. You can be a leader without being the alpha male. In Nick Suss's piece today, he talked to Tyler Bray and Aaron Murray, who played for Matt Nagy, and they both were like, hey, he's more like your brother than he is like your father. So that was kind of a hint that, hey, just because I'm going to hire this guy, he's not Mike Vrabel as far as leadership's concerned, but he's still a good leader. And then when I asked him about Nagy and the perception being that Nagy's a bad coach, he basically said he did good things in Chicago and did really good things in Kansas City. But even if Mike Borgonzi wants to hire Matt Nagy, you know as well as I do, he does not have final say on who the coach of the team is going to be. And we all know who does. And by the way, this is not just a Titans issue. This is pretty much every team in the league. Amy decides who the coach of the Titans is going to be. And I wonder if this PR blitz that the Kansas City Chiefs are putting on, that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes is now involved in, and The Athletic has been involved in, and CBS is now involved in, I wonder if this PR blitz is for an audience of one. Titans Twitter hates Matt Nagy. And the truth is the Titans listen to the fans. The Titans listen to the fans. That's why they fired a winning general manager. The Titans listen to the fans. That's why they fired a winning coach in Mike Mularkey, because Twitter hated the fact that Terry Robisky liked to run the football. And so if the fans hate Matt Nagy and Mike Borgonzi loves Matt Nagy, when it comes to getting the most important approval, I could see Amy being very hesitant to pull the trigger on Matt Nagy, who, again, most of you people hate. And I kept thinking about the same thing Jonathan Jones reported about the last coaching search when he said, quote, the Titans Brain Trust had interest in several candidates in 2024 when Callahan emerged as the pick. Then Ravens defensive coordinator Mike McDonald put on a strong initial interview but wasn't chosen. Then Cowboys defensive coordinator Dan Quinn interviewed with the team virtually but did not make the second round. Jones continues. Quinn was just days removed from giving up 48 points at home to the Packers in the divisional round of the playoffs, and sources say Strunk couldn't shake the stink of that, plus the image of the 28-3 Super Bowl collapse when Quinn was the head coach of the Falcons. Stop. Now, I think Jonathan Jones' sourcing on the Titans and their 2024 coaching search is Rand Carthon. And I think that because they worked together at CBS, and when Rand Carthon was the general manager, Jonathan Jones did have info on the Titans, and I haven't really seen a lot of info from Jonathan Jones since then. So I could be wrong about that. I think Jonathan Jones' info is Rand Carthon. And what Rand Carthon, and again, Rand does not tell the truth on a consistent basis. We learned that when he was the general manager. But what Rand Carthon, I think this is who he's talking to Jonathan Jones, and Jonathan Jones is reporting, is that we wanted to hire Mike McDonald. We wanted to hire Dan Quinn, of course, the two coaches that have had the most success. But Amy said no. And Amy couldn't shake the 48 points the Cowboys gave up and the stink of the Falcons Super Bowl. That shit fans care about. Like, when you own the team, you shouldn't just, he blew the Super Bowl 7 years ago, so I'm not going to hire him. Again, watch the Buffalo Bills play offense. Go hire Joe Brady. You ain't getting Josh Allen's offense. And again, smart people know that. But Amy's not smart. So I think that they're trying to pump up Matt Nagy's candidacy because they know Mike Borgonzi wants to hire him. And I think Mike Borgonzi has told Andy Reid, I want to hire Matt Nagy, but the lady upstairs got to sign off on it. And I think that's why they're interviewing every Tom, Dick, and Harry under the sun, so they can say, we interviewed everybody, and Nagy was the best, and he's going to get Chad and Ziegler and McKenzie to all sign off on it to say, Miss Amy, he's the best. And that's why I think there's such a PR push for Matt Nagy to get another job. With that, Braden Gaul joins us now on the program. Of course, Braden, the big news coming down the pipe, which I guess I don't know if surprise is the right word, but there was something today that I felt not shock, when Mike Tomlin ended up stepping down from the Steelers. There was something inside of me, because this is not like it's some people weren't ready for. What was your reaction to the news that Tomlin was out, and to the Titan fans that say, Titans gotta go get Mike Tomlin? Braden, you're muted, and I can't unmute you for some reason.
Remove there. Apologies. Not surprised that a guy who's been coaching as long as he has and dealing with, there's clearly kind of like with Baltimore, there's clearly a line or an era of demarcation here, right? There's transition that happens. End of an era to the folks in the comment section. It makes total sense. I don't think that's really that surprising. And on the Titans side of things, which matters the most here, and I've been saying this, I think, for over a week on 3 or 4 shows, which is the pool of candidates the Titans are selecting from and interviewing is so much deeper and better than I think anyone expected, that the job is so much better than regular fans, the casuals on Twitter think, that Amy's influence on how candidates view the job is so much less than people realize and the casuals think. So do I think Tomlin is a great fit and a perfect hire and is the right guy for the job? Like, I'm not putting him at the top of the list, but if you add him to this list, all it does is move probably Arthur Smith and Matt Nagy down a spot. And I've said for 2-3 weeks now, if Matt Nagy and Arthur Smith are your last resort options, which those two names are still way ahead of like almost all the people they've interviewed right now, I think you're in a really good hiring situation. You've got a great pool of candidates to pick from. I think they could still screw it up. They could do a great job, but like I think it's a way better pool of candidates than anyone actually expected when this whole thing got started, I guess, in week 6 or 7.
Do you think the Titans will be in the mix for Tomlin?
I think he fits the MO of what they're looking for. So I guess, they have to kick the tires. They have to make the phone call. That's doing your job if you're Mike Borgonzi. I think you have to kind of look at what are the things that we think they would be valuing, what traits, what characteristics would they be valuing in all of this? And I think a lot of it is kind of the opposite of what Brian Callahan was. And a lot of it's the opposite of what, Brian Callahan was lacking or is going to be what Brian Callahan was lacking, which is head coaching experience, which is culture, leadership over scheme. It's CEO over in the weeds on a position group and developing players. And I think Tomlin certainly fits that same mold, like a Robert Saleh or a Brian Flores or, some of these other head coaches. Again, I would have Nagy and Arthur Smith ahead of guys like Vance Joseph and Raheem Morris, but those guys kind of fit that mold too. So I think it's the characteristics and the traits you're looking for. And I think Tomlin has those in spades when it comes to culture or leadership or CEO ability or, managing people, hiring coaches, etc. So I think he's got all those things that they're probably prioritizing in the search. It doesn't mean they're going to go that direction. Compared to like Mike McDaniel, for example, who's kind of seems like the opposite, right? Lots of scheme, lots of offense, lots of ideas, lots of development of players, not as much on the CEO, culture, leadership side of things.
Here's what bothers me on the Tomlin and Harbaugh front. It is, in order to get these guys, you're going to have to give them $20 million a year. And Titans fans are like, well, wait. Okay, fine. Cut the check. And it's like, right, but this is the Titans we're talking about here. And the going rate for top coaches is $20 million. Harbaugh was making 17 and will make 17 in Baltimore if he doesn't coach this year. Tomlin was making somewhere around 17 in Pittsburgh, and you're the Titans. So if you're going to get one of these guys, there is a you suck tax, and your owner is, the definition of instability. So you are going to have to pay a little bit extra. Then there's the control element here, which I think kind of comes with the contract. You give a guy a $100 million contract to be the coach, his voice is probably going to matter more than that of the general manager. And for some reason, the local scribes here seem to be like, well, why would control be important? It's not that big of a deal. We've been spending the last 4 years talking about control and who's in charge. And I don't think Mike Borgonzi would be willing just to give up the power unless Amy said, I want Harbaugh, I want Tomlin. But I don't understand why Titans fans don't understand. You can't get Harbaugh or Tomlin, guys that have options and leverage. You can't get them unless you give them the moon.
Why does Harbaugh just worked with one of the great GMs in modern NFL history, had no problem with the front office in Baltimore picking all of his players or working with that guy, right?
Sure.
How much did he have in terms of we're going to take Lamar Jackson 32? I'm sure that was a group decision, right? I don't know if that mattered. I like the money's the same way. I think it matters to the people that it matters to, if that makes sense. I know that's weird, but if you're an NFL team and you're offering $5 million a year and the other team is offering $15 million a year, yeah, that matters. That's different. But if everybody's offering, it's kind of like recruiting these days. If you're a 5-star defensive end coming out of high school, money doesn't matter really to you anymore because you're going to get the money regardless of where you go.
Sure.
Ohio State's offering $110,000, Alabama's offering $105,000, Tennessee's going to offer $112,000. You're not making that decision based on the money. You're making that decision based on all the other things: standard of living, relationships, the scheme that you fit in, etc. I think that's the same here. if everybody's offering about $15 to $17 million, I don't think the money matters, especially in a state with no income tax.
Well, it does matter if you're going to offer 20.
Well, I mean, 20 versus 12, sure, that's a difference. What I'm saying is that the other things that matter to a coach, which clearly are the quarterback, the general manager, the relationship, where does the family want to live, how good can you win, the roster, draft picks, capital, etc. It's like all the different things that do go into your relationship with the owner. All these things matter. But if I'm offering you 19 million, but I really want to be somewhere else and I'm still going to make 17 million, like what can you buy with 19 million a year that you can't buy with 17 million a year? Like there's nothing on earth that you can't go buy. So I don't think, point is it matters. If all you care about is money, then it matters. If the gap is huge, then it matters. But by and large, if you're looking at Stefanski and Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh and, probably less for a Robert Saleh.
Stefanski is not going to make Tomlin or Harbaugh money.
No, I'm just saying, like, all these guys are kind of in this bucket, and they're all going to make ballpark roughly about the same amount of money. If $1 million is why a guy decides not to come here, I'm not sure I want that guy. If I'm willing to make $16 million a year to come to Nashville because I believe in Cam Ward and the city of Nashville and the general manager, and I like the roster and I like some of the young draft picks. I like Jeffrey Simmons. I like the strengths of the team, which aren't many. I don't know why that, if that's the thing you love, that the money and the owner, I don't think are nearly as big of factors. And I don't think control, unless, again, this is a person. I don't know who this made up fictional coach we're talking about here, where like all they want is to shop for the groceries too, and then go do the cooking. How many people have done that successfully in all of the NFL in the last 50 years?
Well, it's definitely, many. Yeah, it's happened a lot. Kyle Shanahan's doing it in San Francisco right now. Andy Reid's doing it in Kansas City. I mean, they've played in 2 of the last 6 Super Bowls.
Andy Reid has complete control over the entire roster,
yes.
and that is why they've won, not Patrick Mahomes.
Well, whose call was it to draft Mahomes?
Again, when it comes to like Lamar Jackson with Harbaugh.
Do you know who the general manager of the Chiefs was when they drafted Mahomes?
It wasn't Snead, right?
No, it was John Dorsey.
That's right, Dorsey. You're
you're
a pro Dorsey guy, aren't you?
Do you know what happened to John Dorsey right after they drafted Patrick Mahomes?
He went to Cleveland?
Do you want to know why he went to Cleveland? He didn't just get to choose to go to Cleveland. It wasn't like he said, you know what? I think I've had a nice little run here in Kansas City, but it's time for me to go to Cleveland. This is not a Kenny Chesney song. He got fired. You want to know why he got fired? Because he and Andy didn't see eye to eye, and the owner had to pick, and the owner picked Andy.
Well, but again, I think I don't think we're saying different things here. I
absolutely think we're saying different things.
No, the vast majority of people that take over that are actually the general manager and the head coach are not successful. Every now and then there are elite coaches who can do it. Bill Belichick, Andy Reid, Kyle Shanahan. That's arguably the 3 best coaches of the last 15 years.
Mike Vrabel's doing it. Pete Carroll did it when the Super Bowl in Seattle.
Again, Hall of Famers. You're talking about the GOATs.
Well, are you telling me Harbaugh and Tomlin aren't Hall of Famers?
No, sure, but neither one of them has had this in their past. And again, if they're asking for that, and that's the thing, hey, I'd like to be involved a little bit more in X, Y, or Z. Like, you have that conversation if you're Mike Borgonzi. Like, we don't have to make this like a child's conversation. It can just be like, I'm John Harbaugh. I'm talking with Mike Borgonzi. Do we agree philosophically on how to build a roster?
That's bullshit.
Do we agree philosophically on what the right pieces are? And when push comes to shove, if they're in the draft room at number 4, and the 2 of them are sitting there going like, well, one guy wants Reuben Bain and the other guy wants David Bailey, they've got to make a decision. They got to figure that out. But like that's called being an adult in a room on a team.
No,
so
that's
I don't
how
think
you
that's
draft
that big of a deal.
Guard with the 11th overall pick. Is you have a head coach and a general manager who you haven't really delineated power to, and you've said, hey, you guys work it out together. You guys promise me that you will find a way, and you guys will collaborate better than anybody else. And then it's like, well, the top guy on our board is a guard, so let's draft him 11th. That's how that happens.
The best offensive player on the team.
It doesn't. It doesn't work like that. Like it does not work.
Because
well.
Rand Carthon isn't good. Like, he's not good at this.
Again,
he was not good at this. I don't know what
they don't build statues for committees. You think Nick Saban would ever work with somebody who told, hey, Nick and I have to agree on what we're going to do? No, Nick Saban's going to do things Nick Saban's way.
So what's your point? What is your point?
My point is that if you want Harbaugh or you want Tomlin, you have to give them the world. You have to give them everything that every top coach gets. Sean Payton has full control. Why is Bo Nix the quarterback of the Denver Broncos? Because Sean Payton wanted Bo Nix to be the quarterback of the Denver Broncos. Not hey, you're a 3-14 general manager making $4 million a year. I am a future Hall of Famer with a Super Bowl, and I am making $20 million a year. And when we get on draft night, we'll compromise. It doesn't work like that.
But what is standing in the way of John Harbaugh? Let's just say Harbaugh. Let's use Harbaugh. Number one, there's no track record of him demanding these stuff. So I'm not saying he does or doesn't want this. I'm just saying he just worked extremely well with one of the best front office departments for 18 years, won Super Bowl. What you're saying is that if he's interviewing with Mike Borgonzi and he says to Borgonzi, I want final say, or whatever that means. Again, I think that's so overrated, but let's go with your theory here. You're saying,
Mike Vrabel certainly wasn't a big deal with him.
You're saying, again, totally different power structure. You cannot compare the two because the people that were making the football decisions at that time are no longer making football decisions for the team. And that's a great thing. That's a good thing for the Titans. And I've talked to them specifically about that. They don't like the one specifically told me I didn't like doing it. And so I think Ran Carthon was not the first choice. That there was clearly a league emphasis on Ran Carthon. I don't want to rehash the whole Ran Carthon.
Who was the first choice?
So the key is, for Vrabel, we all know who Vrabel's choice was.
Vrabel wanted a yes man to Vrabel because Vrabel wanted to be in control.
He wanted someone that he trusted to do the job, and with all due respect, he was completely correct.
Said to Amy, I think I deserve to be in control.
Sure. That's what. Again, fine. You care about who has the exact final say on a draft pick. I don't think that shit matters to winning Super Bowls. I think you have to have great people in all of these roles, and if all of these great people are sort of on the same page-ish, that's how you build success and you build a winning franchise. If John Harbaugh comes to Borgonzi and says, "Hey, when push comes to shove, when there's 8 seconds left with the 4th pick in the draft, I'm the one who needs to be the final say." Number one, Mike Borgonzi, I don't think is threatened by ego at all, which I think is a very big asset to have in a general manager. I don't think he's threatened by that stuff. He's very confident in how he thinks and feels, and I think that's a great trait in him. If they all sit down, and let's say who's in that room, it's Amy Adams Strunk, it's Mike Borgonzi, a little bit of Chad Brinker, and a little bit of Bryce Wasserman. They're all going to be in the room deciding on whether or not to give John Harbaugh that final thing. And if Mike Borgonzi's like, sure, fine, then if that's what we're arguing about, then let's have a conversation, and that's what we're doing. I don't think that is not nearly as important to me as people sort of being philosophically aligned by and large, seeing things the same way about how to build a team. What defense do we want to play? Are you going to play a 4-3 or a 3-4? I think those things are way more important than at the end of the day, I wanted so-and-so and you didn't. And I don't think you can compare it to Carthon either, because he was incompetent. And he wasn't Vrabel's choice. He wasn't Vrabel's first choice. And I think the NFL pushed him on Amy Adams Strunk, and non-football people were influenced by that and hired a guy that wasn't qualified. That's all.
So I think it does matter. I mean, I remember the old man told me that the reason he wasn't Pete Carroll's general manager in Seattle was because of final say. And if it matters to Pete Carroll and Floyd Reese, and it matters to Andy Reid, and it matters to Sean Payton, and it matters to Mike Vrabel, and it matters to all the good coaches, I would assume that it would matter to Tomlin and Harbaugh, who are good coaches. You mean to tell me that it matters to Jim Harbaugh, but it's not going to matter to John Harbaugh?
I think it.
You think Jim Harbaugh answers to Joe Ortiz?
You do not know, nor does it, unless you're in the room when the two people are having a discussion about something they mildly disagree on. None of us know what that even means. None of us really know. Is it two people like my daughters coming to Amy Adams Strunk saying, "Oh, I wanted this. No, I wanted that, and we disagree." And who gets to win the decision? Unless you know exactly how every one of these conversations goes down between every coach you just mentioned, all of whom are great, and you're not mentioning any of the bad ones who failed miserably when they had control, which is many as well. I would take Harbaugh. I don't think Harbaugh is this superpower who's going to win a Super Bowl automatically. I think he's a really good coach, and I think he's a great hire. You could do way worse than John Harbaugh. And if Mike Borgonzi doesn't agree with John Harbaugh about stuff, then he's not the right coach for the job. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
So you're telling me that if John Harbaugh, a Super Bowl winning coach, who, again, 18 seasons in the league, made the playoffs 12 times, if he doesn't see eye to eye with a 3-14 general manager, then he is the one who is not right for this job.
Well, this is the cards the Titans, like, Mike Borgonzi is in charge of this stuff. Right now, he's the best football decision maker they've had since 2019 John Robinson and Mike Vrabel at the same time. John Harbaugh never needed this control you're speaking of to be that 18-year superstar coach in Baltimore.
He also never worked with a 3-14 general manager.
Right. So what I'm saying is we don't know how the two of them would interact. We don't know. My mustache is quivering. Sorry. Distracted by the comments. We just don't know. Like, we don't know what the conversations are like between Sean Payton and the front office. We don't know what the conversation, like, if John Dorsey was standing on the table and saying, Patrick Mahomes is a bust, we cannot draft him, then yeah, it makes sense that Andy Reid got the power because he got it right. He drafted Patrick Mahomes. I don't have a problem with that. Like, I'm not being like obtuse here. I'm just saying to suggest that the only way to be successful and compete for Super Bowls is to give an elite coach complete control. I just don't think it's nearly. I know you've been obsessed with the whole who has final say thing for a long time. I don't think it's nearly as important as everyone being on the same page in general most of the time.
Okay, so
most of the time you have to agree on what you guys view as a quality football team.
I don't think the head coach has to have final say. I think that the Seattle Seahawks are an example where the general manager, John Schneider, has final say. And the reason that they moved on from Pete Carroll was because they were transitioning the power from Pete to John. And so John Schneider hired Mike McDonald, and he calls the shots. And the Seahawks are doing very well. The Broncos, Sean Payton calls the shots. George Payton works for Sean Payton, and Sean Payton calls the shots. I think you can do it either way. I think you need one guy in charge. I don't think you can have if we have a disagreement, we'll talk about it and it will work itself out. I don't think you can have that. You keep talking about everybody getting on the same page. And I think that's horseshit. I think that's what they dreamed of with Brian Callahan, which is everybody goes along to get along. And I don't think that works in the NFL. I think the way you get everybody on the same page is you have Sean Payton walk into the room and Sean Payton says, all right, everybody, we're going to be on my page. Make sense? Okay. Russell Wilson, you're not on my page. Get the fuck out. Well, it'll cost $39 million a year if we do that to get rid of Russell Wilson. I don't give a shit. I'm running the show. That is what I think it takes. I think it takes you saying you are in charge. And I think right now, Mike Borgonzi is in charge. And so if you want a coach with no options, Matt Nagy, Mike McCarthy, Jason Garrett, these guys will answer to Borgonzi and not think twice about it because they get the head coaching job. John Harbaugh does not have to take orders from a 3-14 coach. He can sit on his ass, make $17 million a year, and be the most coveted candidate next year for half.
But again, you are saying that you know that that's what he wants. Now, unless it's come out in a specific report that John Harbaugh will only take a job if he has complete control over the roster, I have not seen that report. If that is true, then that's the calculus the Titans have to work with, and then they have to decide, is that the right thing for us or not?
Well, let me ask you.
And they could be wrong, but they also could be right. So somebody in the comment says, we've seen clearly that final say matters a lot. If you're talking about the Titans, please enlighten me and tell me what you're talking about. What is the thing that you're speaking of? What is the thing that has destroyed or propelled the franchise because we didn't know who had final say, or one person had final say? Like who is what is this you're talking about? Tell me, please.
I guess what I would say is if you own the team and John Harbaugh was actually interested in the job, but you had to pay him $20 million a year, which reportedly the Titans are paying Vrabel $9.5 million. So this is going to be a big pill to swallow, paying a coach $20 million. You're going to have to give him $20 million. And he says, like, I'm not answering to this guy. Like, we're going to do things the Harbaugh way around here. The same way that Jim Harbaugh told the Chargers, we're going to do things the Harbaugh way around here. Would you give him that power? Or would you ride with the 3-14 general manager and take your chances with Matt Nagy, Jeff Hafley, those clowns?
So I agree with your last point. I think Hafley, I think most of those candidates, I'm not, calling them clowns is kind of silly. But I think none of them, I don't think Jeff Hafley's qualified to be the head coach of the Titans. And I've seen too much of Jeff Hafley as a Packers shareholder. A guard again, Alex in the comment, a guard at 11, Levis and Cam Ward. What are you talking about? Peter Skronsky is the best offensive player on the team.
That was a terrible pick.
On the team, best player on the team.
Has not made a Pro Bowl in 3 years. You cannot draft a guard with the 11th pick who does not make the Pro Bowl.
Cool. Best player on the team right now on offense.
He is not the best player on the team.
Will Levis, what's the argument about Will Levis? Is the argument that Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon both got it wrong? I've been told that they agreed on the pick. But again, we don't know who had final say in that exact situation. So we don't know who to blame in the first place. But if Rand Carthon did have final say, again, what does that? What does this prove? Cam Ward. You don't think that Brian Callahan and Mike Borgonzi agreed on taking Cam Ward? What are you talking about? This is. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills on this. I don't want Harbaugh to come into an organization that has an entire future built around a draft class last year and say it's all garbage. He might be right about that, but if that guy can't come in and see, I don't know. I think it's important. I think it's overvalued. Much like every Titans fan, most Titans fan on social media saying, "Oh, his job is terrible because Amy Adams Strunk doesn't know what she's doing." Clearly, that's not true. Factually incorrect. All the candidates like Cam Ward and Mike Borgonzi, by and large.
You did not answer the question, which was
repeat the question.
If you own the team and Harbaugh said, I'm not answering to him. If I want to take Jeremiah Love with the 4th pick, you're hiring me to make these decisions. So
I don't know.
If you want Harbaugh, you got to get hard. You got to go all in.
He might be the only one. I mean, to answer your question, he might be the only one that I would go, yeah, we should consider that. Hey, Mike, what is he worth it in your opinion? And again, Mike is not an ego guy, and I respect him for that. And if Borgonzi has this conversation with me as the owner and says, look, I think Harbaugh's too good. We need to give him a little bit more control than we would give the other candidates. And if that means he has final say on draft picks, fine. But again, the head coach does not if you know how a scouting department works, both for the pro ranks and for the college ranks, the head coach is not in on this stuff. He has no time. The head coach has no time to be going over regional tape of every prospect in the Southeast for that wide receiver. That's not what a head coach has time to do. And certainly not during the regular season, which is when you scout NFL players.
Yes,
that's done by the front office. And so you have to turn stuff over. You cannot control everything.
No, you can control everything. You can delegate, but you can control.
Delegation is all we're talking about. That's all.
No. We're talking about decision making. Again, Bill Belichick, he was clearly coaching, every day. And he was not on the road scouting when he was coaching during the season with the Patriots, but when it came to drafting Rob Gronkowski, that was Bill Belichick's decision. John Robinson was pushing for Rob Gronkowski. Floyd Reese was pushing against Rob Gronkowski because Gronk had back injuries, and I think that made Floyd really nervous. Floyd went to Arizona and went to Gronk's house when they were trying to decide whether or not they wanted to draft Gronk, and it was Bill who decided to draft Rob Gronkowski. Somebody has to make the decision. And that's all I'm saying here. And you just said, hey, if Borgonzi comes to me and says, you know what, fine, let's let Harbaugh make the call in the draft picks. What if Borgonzi says to you, now he won't say, I'm not giving up power to that asshole. But if Borgonzi says to you, look, because again, the owner's going to be the one interviewing the coach, the final coaches. If we get to Harbaugh, that's going to be an owner thing. Because you're talking about the money and everything. And Harbaugh says, look, if you want me, I've got other opportunities. I'm making $17 million this year, no matter what. If you want me, we're going to share a vision and it's going to be my vision.
Yeah.
And if Borgonzi says to you, I understand that that's what he wants, but he's never worked in personnel. This is a multi-year build out. We used the draft last year to kind of begin what we're building out right now. Like, it would throw all of our plans. He's going to come up with reasons why not to give it to Harbaugh. He's not going to say, no, I want the power, but that's what it's going to be. Then you as the owner have to make a choice. And I am putting you on the spot saying, I am asking you, which side are you going with? Are you going with John Harbaugh and giving him what the top coaches in the NFL get? Andy Reid, Mike Vrabel, Sean Payton, Kyle Shanahan. He's in that group from a resume standpoint. Are you giving him what those guys get, or are you going to go with the 3-14 general manager?
I love how you ask the leading question, Your Honor, with the framing that you do, because, again, John Harbaugh has never been a Super Bowl champion caliber coach with complete general managing control. So we don't even know.
Neither was Sean Payton.
We don't even know if he could do it. So it's not as simple. Hey, I let you go. It's not even as simple as just saying, well, he's guaranteed to be great, so we'll just give him whatever he wants, even though he's never done that thing you're giving to him to show us that he's been great. And again, going back to, like, let's go with the Will Levis decision here. Like, if it was all Ran Carthon who had final say, it was a terrible pick. If it was Mike Vrabel who had final say, it was a bad pick. If the two of them worked together on it, it was a bad pick. Knowing who made the decision is irrelevant. It was a bad pick. It is not. It's relevant to us in our conversation because we want to blame someone. It is not relevant to the actual success or failure of the organization. You have to make the right decisions, whether that's made in a group setting or whether that's made by John Robinson or Mike Vrabel or Ran Carthon or Mike Borgonzi or Chad Brinker. Right now, this is my opinion, and I think it's backed up by a lot of facts. The best football decision maker this organization has had since before the pandemic is Mike Borgonzi. It's not Chad Brinker. It's not
Bert after the pandemic.
But no, before the pandemic, because John Robinson started making god-awful decisions during the pandemic.
Okay.
In 20. The best football.
So since the pandemic.
I think since before. 2019, 2018 draft classes, free agent draft classes, trading for Ryan Tannehill. Like, the last time a good football decision maker was in charge of the organization from a personnel standpoint on the front office side was 2018-19. You got to go back that far to get to those to that decision. It's not Burke Nihill. It's not Adam Strunk. It's not Chad Brinker. It's not Bryce Wasserman. It's not Ran Carthon. It's not Brian Callahan. It is not any of the guys they brought in, Ziegler or McKenzie. Mike Borgonzi is the most trusted and best. Is he worthy of a Super Bowl championship? I have no idea. Can John Harbaugh come here and win with full control? You have no idea. Neither do I. So if you're asking me who I have to trust right now as a fan, I think Borgonzi is your best bet.
I'm asking you as the owner. You're making the decision.
She doesn't know. We don't know. You don't know. I don't know.
I'm asking you. I'm
torn on that. I don't think John Harbaugh automatically wins the Super Bowl if you give him control. I don't know if that's the right decision or not. I need to think about it. I don't like it. I don't like coaches having complete control and trying to do two jobs at once, because it's not, you can't do the two jobs at once. You can have final say in a decision that's difficult, but you cannot do the job of general manager and head coach. It doesn't work.
Here's what I do. Yes, it does. What is Sean Payton doing?
Final say is not the same thing as being a full-time general manager.
Who's the number one seed right now in the AFC?
Occasionally.
Who's the number 2 seed in the AFC?
Kyle Shanahan, Bill Belichick. Occasionally, the elites can do it. I'm not arguing you. The vast majority cannot. I don't know. That's all.
So I guess what I would say is, here's what I don't understand. Like, when the Denver Broncos decided to go with Sean Payton, he was not their first choice. They wanted Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh said no. They wanted DeMeco Ryans. DeMeco Ryans said no and went to the Texans. Sean Payton did not want to go to Denver. He wanted to go to Houston. He wanted to go to a warm weather city that had a quarterback. And he wanted to go to the Chargers, but they made the playoffs. He wanted to go to the Dolphins, but they made the playoffs. He wanted to go to Dallas, but they weren't going to fire Mike McCarthy. So he said, okay, fine, I'll do it, but you got to pay me and you have to put me in charge. Sean Payton, at that point, had basically the exact same resume as John Harbaugh. Mike Vrabel, when he got the Patriots job and has final say, has less of a resume, had less of a resume, still has less of a resume today than John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh's resume says he is in the class of Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan and Mike Vrabel and Sean Payton and all of those guys.
Minus any evidence that he knows how to be a general manager.
Sean Payton didn't have any either. Mickey Loomis ran the show in New Orleans.
And by the way, I'm not pro-committee. This is not what I'm arguing. I'm not arguing that we should have a committee where it's who knows who's making decisions. It's like we all just like flip coins and decide things. Like that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that most head coaches who also try to do the general manager job are not, like, very rarely does it actually work out to become Kyle Shanahan or Bill Belichick or Andy Reid. Right now I trust Mike Borgonzi to be the general manager. Go hire a badass football coach. That's all. Like, it's not that complicated. They need to agree on most things. And when they disagree, there probably needs to be some final say thing that happens behind closed doors, but it's not really all that relevant to the success or failure of the organization. It's just not. And
I want you to think about this, because your opinion is a general manager led organization is better than a head coach led organization. That is your thesis statement.
No, right? My thesis is that the vast majority of the job description, head coach and general manager, cannot be done by one person, and that the vast majority of the general managing job and the vast majority of the head coaching jobs are different jobs and need to be done by different people because you need a division of labor. At some point, one person has to be the person who said, hey, we've got 2 great prospects, or we've got 2 free agents, and hey, we need to re-sign Jeffrey Simmons. Is this the right amount of money? Eventually somebody has to say, let's do it. And I think it's way more collaborative than anyone in this chat room or you or anyone else wants to imagine. Even at places like Denver, the owner has to sign off on new contracts to Jeffrey Simmons. Like,
okay.
This stuff has to be decided more or less by a number of people, a small number of people. And again, 95% of the general managing's job is to be a general manager, and that you don't need approval from the head coach to do things.
Okay. So your thesis is everybody has to get on the same page independently, and that'll work. Whereas I think everybody has to basically be coerced to being on the same page because Johnny's in charge. And if you don't like it, then you're going to be looking for another job.
I like the carrot approach, and you like the stick approach. I am shocked by that development.
That said, coach-led team versus GM-led team. Over the last 10 Super Bowls, how many do you think are coach-led teams versus GM-led teams?
Well, I mean, when you say led, you mean like I don't even know what that means. Like every football team has to be led by a great coach. Like I don't know what you're saying.
Who has final say? Philadelphia. Who has final say? Howie Roseman or Nick Sirianni?
I assume it's Roseman. I don't know.
It is Roseman. So that's one for the GM. Andy Reid has final say in Kansas City. Those are the previous Super Bowls before that.
That's like all of them.
Well, I mean, I guess
like 5 of them or whatever.
I guess my point here is, and we can continue to go on, where the Rams, I think the Rams are like a true collaboration where Snead and McVay truly do work together.
Do you really think that like these head coaches like don't respect or appreciate or use the input from their front office that have quote unquote final say? Like, I don't understand what you're arguing.
I think Sean Payton decided to draft Bo Nix. And if Sean Payton wasn't the head coach of the Denver Broncos, then they would not have drafted Bo Nix. And I think that at the end of the day, somebody has to say like, hey, I'm making the decision here, and they have to be empowered to make the decision. And they have to be able to tell everybody else, sorry, you may think you have better info than I have, but I'm in charge and I'm going to pick this guy. You know, John Elway regrets not drafting Josh Allen because Vance Joseph and the coaching staff talked him out of it. And I think that's Elway regrets it because Elway knew he had the power to say, no, we're going to draft Josh Allen. So that's where I look at it. And I'm like, you know, I think that it has to be one or the other. And I just cannot, I'm fine with giving the general manager power. And I'm fine with you saying, hey, you know what? I trust a 3-14 general manager who did not improve the football team by 1 game last year. I trust him over John Harbaugh. I think you're wrong to do that. But if that's the way you feel, that's the way you feel.
I'm saying I don't know. I'm saying you don't know. I'm saying ownership doesn't know. Just like hiring Brian Callahan was a huge success and he checks every box. And like, no, hiring coaches is a total crapshoot. It's an inexact science. People get it wrong all the time. What I'm saying is that the vast majority, 90, I'm going to go 98, 90. How many decisions do you think a head coach has to make each week? How many decisions do you think a general manager has to make each week? The vast majority, 99% of those decisions are not being cleared by the other guy. Like maybe you pick up the phone, you're like, hey, we're going to decide on these 2 receivers in free agency. Like, where do you think on this? Hey, I like so-and-so over so-and-so. Here's why. Oh, I agree with that. I disagree with that. Okay, we'll take it into consideration. Like the vast majority of decisions, you're not doing that with. You're talking about the Bo Nix or the Josh Allen, the very specific, very important totally agree with you. Extremely important decisions. But again, like if it's Sean Payton who in the room where they're all communicating decided eventually against the wishes of his entire staff, hey, I'm going to take Bo Nix. Great decision by Sean Payton. He's an expert. He knows what he's doing. But if you are in that room consistently disagreeing all the time, you're not going to win anything, is my point. Like, you can't, it's not fun. That's the problem with Vrabel and Carthon.
And
they just disagreed on everything, and Carthon was mostly wrong.
That's when John Dorsey gets kicked out and Brent Veach gets called up by Andy. That's what happens. And so, again, that's different. Do you think there's one thing Paul hit on yesterday that I do want your opinion on, which is Paul said, that the Adam Schefter report yesterday was really nothing when it came to Matt LaFleur in Green Bay. And I didn't really think about it like that because I just kind of took, and I'm an idiot for this, but I took the Schefter report as, well, I guess LaFleur's staying in Green Bay. Sounds to me like, well, we're going to try to work out a contract. And LaFleur's going to go from making $9 million to the market, which again is in the $20 million range. And I don't know, like, is Ed Policy really want to pay that on a 5-year contract? And so I do wonder if the Packers are setting this up so that they could trade LaFleur once everybody gets their Rooney Rule requests in there. Do you think LaFleur is still in the market? You're an owner of the Green Bay Packers. Do you think Matt LaFleur is still in the market?
I think they're biding their time. I think that it would be foolish to think that you're going to go hire someone better than Matt LaFleur, but it doesn't mean you don't consider the trade option and do your diligence on what you could get in return. And we could use the Titans just as an example to kind of pair up as a partner here. If the Titans miss out on their top 3 candidates, let's say, let's just call them Harbaugh, Stefanski, and Saleh for the sake of the conversation. If they miss out on those 3 candidates because those 3 guys decide to go elsewhere, that is when other teams would look at Matt LaFleur as being more valuable. And that is when I think Green Bay has an opportunity to sort of leverage the fact that maybe they don't want him, or at least the perception that they don't want him. I think it would be foolish. He is, I wouldn't call him a top 5 coach or an elite coach, but he's one of the better coaches in the sport. And you're probably going to hire somebody worse if you fire him. And you can probably get something for him if you trade for him. So it doesn't make any sense for them to move on from him at this point. If you want to wait and try to acquire something, okay, go for it. If I'm the Titans, would I give up a 3rd-round pick for Matt LaFleur? I think he's probably worth it. I don't love that idea either. So it's all about opportunity costs. And I think Matt LaFleur's back as the head coach. I think they're going to work on a contract extension, and they have a year to do it. So they're not in any rush to do anything right now. Like, they can wait for teams to make their hires. Like you said, go through their interview process, get their requests out, and then find out, hey, let's see who is real desperate here. Let's see who's really desperate to go get a coach, and let's float LaFleur as a trade chip, and let's see if they're interested. And if they're interested, then you capitalize on leveraging someone's desperation. Otherwise, I think he's back in Green Bay, and they're going to sign him to an extension.
Braden Gaul, owner of 440 Sports, of course, hosts the football show on Mondays and Thursdays and the Hot Read podcast and everything else. Braden, great stuff. We didn't even talk about the draft because I didn't think we were going to argue about. Again, I just want you to go on record.
You are the most obsessed person. You are the most obsessed human in Nashville about final say. You're the most obsessed about it of anybody that I know about this. And it's not that it's meaningless. I just don't think it's nearly as important as you're making it out to be. That's all. And it's always a pleasure to see you, my friend.
I think if you want Sean Payton results, you're going to have to do things the Sean Payton way. And if you want Ran Carthon results, you can do things the Ran Carthon way. And
ironically, there's collaboration. The John Harbaugh way.
That's collaboration. And Sean Payton's a dictator, and I prefer that. Braden, I appreciate you. We will talk soon.
Heard. Good to see you, my guy.
Yep, Braden Gaul here on the program. Okay, I do want to talk about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. They're the presenting sponsor of this program. I actually had Hiller to my house today. I've told you, we need a humidifier in our home. And this is how honest of a company Hiller is. They brought the project manager out. Guy I've worked with before, great guy, comes to my home, goes up in the attic, and he looks at all the stuff upstairs as far as the HVAC unit is concerned, looks at the humidifier I want installed, looks at the electrical outlet, looks at the water lines, and says, this is going to be really, really expensive. Like, if you do this, this is going to be, because we're going to have to cut into walls, and we're going to have to run this, and we're going to have to do that. He said, try this. Buy a humidifier one of those individual room humidifiers, that really pumps humidity. Try that out first. He could have just said to me, hey, you need this, and this is going to cost you X, Y, Z. And because I trust Hiller, I would have done it. But no. They're honest. That's why I love them. That's why, again, I always say this: professional, experienced, trustworthy technicians that come into your home and leave it clean and better than they found it. They are honest. That's what matters to me. Learn more at happyhiller.com. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, Electrical, proud supporter of the Preds, Vols, and Vandy. That's Hiller. Call the Happy Face truck today, just like I do. That's it for us. We're out of here today. Great show. Thank you to Hiller. Like and subscribe. Tell all your friends. Stillman & Company. We'll see you all live tomorrow at 2 o'clock.